एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच कहाँ बुध प्रभ तुछ हमारी बरन सकै महिमा जो तुहारी हम ना सकत कर सिफत तुम्हारी आप ले हो तुम कथा सुधारी हम ना सकत कर सिफत तुम्हारी आप ले हो तुम कथा सुधारी। सतनाम श्री वाहिगुरु साहिब जीओ।
एक ओंकार सत गुर प्रसाद श्री वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह है। अथ श्री गुर पंथ प्रकाश ग्रंथ प्रथमे खालसे जी की आद उत्पत्ति की साखी। दोहरा श्री गुरु नानक चरण बंद गुरु गोबिंद सिंह ध्याय। लिखो उत्पत्ति खालसे मोह निज करहो सहाय। श्री गुरु नानक चरण बंद गुरु गोबिंद सिंह ध्याय। लिखो उत्पत्ति खालसे मोह निज करहो सहाय।
वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। गुरु रूप गुरु प्यारी साध संगत जी, we're blessed and fortunate that we have been able to have this time to come into the Sangat of Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, to come into the Sangat in the space where we have to connect. We have the ability to connect with our Guru, the ability to connect with God who is inside us and all around this world, and reflect on our purpose for coming into this earth and from where we can have a source of inspiration. Today, Guru Sahib blesses us that we are fortunate to begin a new chapter in English Katha, which is the Katha of Sri Gur Panth Parkash, which was written by Bhai Rattan Singh Bhangu. Many of you may know of the famous Sikh warrior Bhai Mehtab Singh ji, who we celebrate for the one who punished Mussa Ranghar. It was his grandson Bhai Rattan Singh Bhangu that, upon a chance encounter with one Captain Murray in the early 1800s, Bhai Rattan Singh was charged with the seva of narrating the history of the Khalsa such that it would be sent back to the King of England and to all corners of the world where the British Empire reigned. Many years later, in Bhai Rattan Singh Ji's life, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji came from the family who fought in each of these famous historic battles that we celebrate as Sikhs. Bhai Rattan Singh's family lived through the genocide of the 1700s, and Bhai Rattan Singh's family lived through those times where the Panth transformed its fate into becoming rulers of the land. Yet that time was not earned easily. It is said of that time, ਵੀ 100 ਸਾਲ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੀ ਤਲਵਾਰ ਮਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਈ, ਕਿ 100 ਸਾਲ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਨੇ ਘੋੜਿਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਾਠੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਆਸਣ ਲਾਏ. That for 100 years the Khalsa's sword was not placed within its sheath. That such was the environment that within Sikhs lived, that to have a sword and to have it sheathed could be the difference between one's life and death. That so common was it for Sikhs to be attacked that Sikhs could not even spare that one moment where they would have to take their sword out, that instead they learned to carry their sword naked at all times. That the Singhs had no peace that they were able to obtain when they were being hunted down in the jungles, that they had to sleep upon their own saddles. Once when the Afghan emperor inquired about the Sikhs, who are these Sikhs who are famed for their courage and their daringness in the Punjab. Tell me of them. And he was told that this horse's saddle is their bed, it is their meditation mat, it is their throne, it is their village, it is their city, it is their country. They have no other place than horseback, and they place faith in none other but their sword and their Guru. It is from this Khalsa that Bhai Rattan Singh Bhangu came. And in the latter parts of his life, he gathered at Amritsar and spent 8 years writing that history of the Sikhs as he had heard through his granddad, Bhai Mehtab Singh, as he had learned through his Nana ji, Bhai Sham Singh, who was one of the founding members of the Budha Dal. It was through Bhai Sham Singh that later the Karodawala missile, which went to be led by Baba Baghel Singh, went on to conquer Delhi, not once, but many times. This inspiration that comes from our history, Bhai Rattan Singh brings to us, and the Guru is fortunate that the Guru has given us the opportunity that through the writings of Bhai Veer Singh, through the Kathas of Baba Santa Singh, of Gyani Sher Singh, and many others, that we now have access to this. When we research, we find literature of our history in the private libraries of monarchs around the world. That such was this interest in the Khalsa that Osborne, a Christian ministry in the 1860s, looking at the writings of the Sikhs, seeing their verses of Raj Karega Khalsa, seeing their ethos and philosophy that Nanga Pukha Rahe Na Koi, we will feed and protect the world. Osborne writes, these people carry a belief that a time will come where their ways rule the world. And if the justice within their principles is anything to go by, and if the strength of their spirit is anything to go by, they have already overcome so much difficulty in the first 100 years of their existence, that if the Khalsa was able to survive that and become the rulers of Punjab, then we need to believe that a time can come where through their principles, through their beliefs, through their values, through the strength of their conviction and faith in the Guru, and through their service to humanity, where their ways will be recognized as supreme. Now, we connect to the Katha of Bhai Rattan Singh, and this Katha will be available online on the Khalsa Panth UK channel. This Katha will be happening all over the UK this year, and perhaps for 1 or 2 more years to come. This Katha will take some years to finish, but it was an essential part of a Sikh's Jivan to hear this Katha every day in the Nihang Singh Dals, because this is the Katha of the Nihang Singhs. This is the Katha of the Budha Dal. This is the stories of that Dal whenever there was trouble in Punjab, that the Budha Dal could call on 15,000 horsemen to settle matters for the Sikhs. It is of these brave Singh warriors that Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us of. And today we will cover the first chapter within Panth Parkash, that Bhai Rattan Singh Ji begins to set the scene of what was happening at the time when the British asked him to tell him the history of the Khalsa. Hanji.
Dohara Sri Gur Nanak Charan Band Gur Gobind Singh Tyai.
So beginning with Ek Oankar Sadgur Prasad, Sri Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. These verses that you heard uttered at the start, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji, like all other Sikh writers of the time, are unambiguous with their affiliation. Ek Oankar, their affiliation is with Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Their affiliation is with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Their affiliation is with Akal Purkh and not any other deity or being. And that one Paramatma is obtained through the grace of the Guru. This is our purpose for coming here in the Darbar Sahib today. These are the core principles via which we call ourselves Sikhs, that we recognize none other as supreme than the Supreme Being themselves, and recognizing their incarnation as the Satguru, we follow the path of Sikhi as our liberation that can bring us peace in this life and the next. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, I meditate and grasp the feet of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and in the undertaking of this history, I meditate upon the image of Guru Gobind Singh Ji.
Likhon utpati khalse mo nij karho sahai.
Nanak Guru Gobind Singh Puran Gur Avatar. To say the names of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, to say the names of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, is a way of saying the names and recognizing and remembering the 10 Gurus. Bhai Rattan Singh teaches us a very valuable thing in their first line. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, meditating upon this image of the 10 Gurus, I seek their blessing, and beginning to narrate this history.
Chaupai ab main likhon Singhan ki sakhi.
I now begin the narration of the history of the Singhs. And I tell this history as it was told to me by my elders, as it was told to me by my granddad, Bhai Mehtab Singh, as my dad, Bhai Rai Singh, who was also recognized by the Panth as a Jinda Shaheed. When Bhai Mehtab Singh Ji had killed Mussa Ranghar and returned to Bikaner in Rajasthan, where the Singhs lived out while they were being hunted in Punjab, the Dusht went to, by Mussa Ranghar's brothers and his nephews, went to the village of Marikambo, where Bhai Mehtab Singh Ji's family was, and they killed his son, Bhai Rai Singh, when he was just a child. Having left this baby child for dead, having chopped at its neck with a talwar, such was the atrocities that were being committed upon the Sikhs at the time. The child Rai Singh was taken and found to be alive and struggling. Over time his stitches healed, and as if by a miracle, the Panth recognized that Akal Purkh had saved the son of Bhai Mehtab Singh Ji, and Bhai Rai Singh Ji was recognized as a Jinda Shaheed, as one who has already been killed but yet lives amongst us. When Bhai Mehtab Singh Ji was Shaheed, having given his Shaheedi at the point that Bhai Taru Singh Ji was made Shaheed. Bhai Taru Singh Ji, who we remember when we talk about, जिन्होंने ने अपनी खोपड़ी लहाई पर केस नहीं कट्टे. The Sikh who treasured his hair so much that he was willing to lose his head but not to lose his case, not to lose his hair. When Bhai Sham Singh Ji, who was one of the founding members of the Budha Dal, learned that Bhai Mehtab Singh Ji had become Shaheed, he had his daughter married to Bhai Rai Singh, who was the son of Bhai Mehtab Singh. So Khalsa Ji ਆਪਣੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਵਿਰਸਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਾਕੀ ਉਦੋਂ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਜਲਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਉਸ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਨਿਆਣਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ. ਉਸ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਿਆਣਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਆਪਦੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇ. So if we look at the loves for Sikhs had with one another, and in such a household where Bhai Rattan Singh Ji had elder Gur Sikhs coming to stay with them very often, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, I collected the tales of our history from these elder wise Gur Sikhs. Hanji. And other than my family, many other Puratan Sikhs would come to our household, and I heard of all the history of the Khalsa from Guru Gobind Singh Ji, through the battles of Sarhand, of the Baba Deep Singh Ji, Baba Mani Singh Ji, Baba Banda Singh Bahadur. I heard these tales first hand from all the wise Gur Sikhs who would come and stay at our house. Hanji. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says that those Sikhs had many qualities and many virtues. We have already reflected on how great warriors these Singhs were, that lived on horseback, that lived by the sword, that died by the sword. But if we look at the old manuscripts that we find at the time, we find that those Sikhs had within their daily Nitnem, Panj Granthi, Das Granthi, Vichitar Natak, Akal Ustad, Sukhuni Sahib, Asa Diwar, Bavan Akhri, on top of their Nitnem. 2.5 hours Simran is part of their day, meditating upon Naam throughout their life. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, I saw in these old Sikhs the quality that Guru Granth Sahib Ji speaks of, and those Sikhs were such heere, were such diamonds. And with however much the intellect the Guru has given me, I now narrate this history for you. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, for me, I have love for those Sikhs. With my mind, with my body, I serve those Sikhs. And I invite you to have love for those Sikhs too. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji gives us a promise. He says, if you embrace the love for this Khalsa, if you embrace the love for your ancestors in the way that I first-hand experienced of these ancestors, it will make you fearless. This is the history of the Khalsa. Hanji. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says that at that time, when I was asked to narrate this history of the Khalsa Panth for the British, so it could be taken to the King of England, so it could be taken to Parliament, so that the East India Company could dispatch this all around the world to speak of this race of people, the Khalsa that they had come across. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, in the way in which I narrated that history, I now write the history in that same manner. And I will follow that same structure for the history that was used in that time. And that's how the chapters of history will follow in Panth Parkash, in the logical manner from Guru Nanak Dev Ji through to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and then the history of the Khalsa Panth from the beginning to the end of the 1700s. So Tapai was a Frenchman known as Court Benoit. He was an early French explorer to India because in the early 1800s and even by the mid 1700s, there was many European nations that had their interests set upon India. The Portuguese, the French and the British were amongst those who were able to establish a presence, as were the Spanish. Now, Court Benoit had been someone who was one of the perhaps early notable French explorers to Punjab. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji begins by telling us his history almost as a way of introducing the Europeans into Hindustan and also into the Sikh context. So he was a veteran who was enlisted by the Marathas. So the Marathas coming from Maratha in Maharashtra, where Bombay is, where Huzur Sahib is, where Hyderabad is. This part of India in the south is known as Maharashtra. And the people from there are known as Marathi. And many of the Marathi, like the Sikhs in Punjab, were Baghi, were rebellious against the Mughal rule. And as the Mughal rule weakened, the Marathi began to establish their rule in India, having fought with the Mughals. Now, what they did was enlist foreigners within their army, recognizing that these people who had fought in many of the famous battles of Europe could bring modern ways into their armies. And in this way, he found himself in employment with the Marathas. So, Kampu, we find in the language old Punjabi words. Some of these words are a mix of early Punjabi and English when they come together. Today we laugh at our elders maybe when they say words like company, but yet our elders were still able to learn a foreign language where many others were not. And Bhai Rattan Singh does not use the word company, he says Kampu, one company, one brigade within this army was acquired by Court Benoit during his service of the Marathas. And he'd been a servant of the Marathas for a very long period. And he became old, and as he became old, he started to think of his own homeland, of returning to his lands, of returning to his country, and giving up this military service that he'd enlisted in within a foreign country. And so everything that he had gained, everything that he had bought, everything that he had been awarded in terms of lands, titles, deeds, he began selling these off. And Piru, who refers now to a Captain Perron, who was another Frenchman who was the son of Court Benoit's sister. He was his nephew. And after selling off his lands, his titles, and indeed, perhaps because he had no heir of his own, he decided to entrust what he did have remaining in terms of lands and armies to his nephew. So giving everything to Perron, he sold off what was left and he returned to France in this way.
Dohara so piru ek kampuon aur kiye tin char.
Perron, who was another French explorer in his own right, and again a military veteran who found himself in useful service within India, he turned one company into 4 companies, and this way, inheriting what his uncle had given him, he began to expand.
ਦਿੱਲੀ ਅਤੇ ਆਗਰੋ ਗੰਗ ਬੀਚ ਬਾਹਿਓ ਮਾਰ
So he had taken under his control many lands which were between Delhi and Agra. And now in a way this was somewhat advantageous to the Marathas in the south of India, because where they stood up a puppet Mughal emperor within Delhi, they were able to put a bridge between themselves and the Mughals and use the Frenchman and his companies as a means of exerting pressure upon the Delhi emperor as and when needed, without the Marathi having to leave their own countries and reside so close to Delhi where they didn't want to be. And at that point the Marathas, they began to have doubt within ourselves that this foreigner who we employed in our service and now has grown in lands and armies themselves, what if he might take over control of Delhi for himself, and we must avoid this happening at all cost. That we have allowed Puran to become so powerful that if he wished he could take this country for himself now by taking Delhi due to the military and political advantage he's been able to gain over it. And Piru, who himself was a sensible man, measured the situation and recognized the situation and began assessing for himself what were his best options. So this country that he had built for himself, these territories which he had built for himself between Delhi and Agra, he decided to sell these to the British. Not only did he sell these to the British, but he left his own camp, betrayed his own men, betrayed his own companies, took money from the East India Company for their service and entrusting their deeds, their military secrets over to them. And Piru's own companies were destroyed in battle with the East India Company and the British, and this happens around 1802-1803. 1860 in the Bikrami calendar, which is what we use in Sikhi, which is around 57 years ahead of the AD calendar. So 1860 Bikrami, approximately 1803 in the AD calendar. This power that had been entrusted to him of Delhi, Onu Galta, he'd wasted all that away, and the Marathi who had fought many battles to establish that control over Delhi, Puran betrayed them in such a way that all of that was put to ruin. And now the English had taken over the territory. So this was one of the ways in which the East India Company and the British Empire was able to gain leverage within the north of India, because originally they had been in Kolkata and in Mumbai, because these were key trade ports which were linked to the ports. And you had people from many different countries and many different companies, corporations, who were trying to gain land, property, wealth, and access to resources within India. So really the history of how India came to be taken over by the British is preordained originally with many different European powers competing with one another. And in this way, when the French left the north of India, the British were now able to establish their stronghold in the north of India, having taken over the territories that Peru had once led for the Marathas. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, in the household of the Marathas now, there is a great sorrow that has taken over upon them. And now the British, having just taken over the East India Company, having just taken over Delhi, now set about their own military processions to proclaim themselves as the new emperors, the new rulers of Delhi and of Hindustan. The British general of the time was Sir David Octherlony. And here Sir General David Octherlony is celebrating with his men the greatest accomplishment not only of his own career, but what he perceives as to be one of the greatest accomplishments of the British Empire at the time. That they have managed to take the throne of Delhi for themselves, And on one hand, you have this procession and pomp taking place. And on the other hand, you have the Singhs who have come to Delhi to collect their taxes. Now, what happened in the latter part of the 1700s was the Singhs took over Punjab. They didn't just take over Punjab, they took over Delhi. And this camp of the Budha Dal, this camp of the Kroda missile, they came for that, where they had 15,000-20,000 men on horseback that they were able to dispatch anywhere. When the Wali would come, now once there was a time, for those of you who are familiar with the Sakhi of Bhai Mani Singh Shaheed, if you're not, it will come later in Panth Parkash. Bhai Mani Singh ji was Shaheed because they were told, if you want to celebrate the Wali, you must pay the government taxes. This is part of the story of Bhai Mani Singh Shaheed Di. Now when the Khalsa did Raj, the Khalsa said, never again will Sikhs pay to celebrate the Wali at Amritsar. Instead, the Mughal emperor will pay for the Sikhs to celebrate the Wali at Amritsar. So the Wali Jor Mela was coming, and the Singhs went into Delhi and said, we're here to collect our tax and our money because we're going back to Amritsar to celebrate the Wali. Look at the spirit of those Sikhs. And those who maybe understand a little bit of Punjabi get the gist of what Bhai Rattan Singh ji is saying here. We Angrejan di gal tilli pa diti. Here they were in their pomp and glory, perceiving themselves as now the new rulers of emperors. And here are these men who they perceive as barbarians on horseback, carrying many weapons with messy beards and turbans, roaming around as if they are the rulers of the place, ruining the celebration that Sir Octherlony was embellishing himself within. And Sir David Octherlony was consumed with anger at what had happened and what he had seen the Singhs doing to his procession. And he was helpless because here they were, many men who had been used to and accustomed to European styles. And here were those Singhs who had been living on horseback for 100 years and walking around with 10s and 20 and 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, up to 100 kilos of metal weapons upon them that you can see even in the pictures and sketches of the Singhs at the time, from their body armor to 3 or 4 talwara, to 2 or 3 rifles, to bows and arrows. We find sketches in the Illustrated London Times from the 1800s of Nihang Singhs who looked like this. And here are these men carrying all these weapons, Sir Octherlony finding himself and his armies and against with them, and he could do nothing but be consumed by anger. And so Sir Octherlony arranged a meeting with the Emperor of Delhi in order to discuss the events that had unfolded on this day. I demand to know who these Singhs are, and I demand to know who gave them the rule of the Punjab, such that they feel they are able to come and sack Delhi, take the rule of Delhi, to tax Delhi, and make a sham of our legal arrangements, our political arrangements, and our laws. Who are these Singhs, and who gave them the rule of Punjab?
Dohara Mario Kaun Ganeem En Kaun Savario Kam.
He recognized that the Sikhs were the great warriors, and he thought perhaps at one point they did some great deed for one of the Mughal emperors. Perhaps they killed an enemy of the emperor, or perhaps they helped resolve an important matter for which they were gifted the land. Sir Octherlony asked the emperor, is this how they came to acquire their rule?
Dino pato likhaye jena kaho shahe us naam.
I want to see the legal arrangements via which these Singhs, the patti, the likhatan, via which these Singhs were given their rule. What are their laws? And who was the name of the emperor at which time these laws were made, such that the Sikhs are able to enjoy the arrangements that they have today? And now the Mughal emperor begins to give his side of the story. No king has ever given these people the permission to rule. They have never done anything for the Mughal government.
ਨਹ ਗਨੀਮ ਕੋ ਇਨ ਨ ਮਾਰਿਓ
They never killed one of our enemies, such that we gifted them land.
ਨਿਜਮਲ ਮੁਗਲ ਨੈ ਨਾਦਰ ਬੁਲਾਇਓ
Nijmal, who was one of the Mughal emperors, when he was struggling with the Marathas in India, called upon Nadar from Afghanistan to come into Hindustan to support him in his Raj in the mid-1700s.
ਦਿੱਲੀ ਕਾਓ ਓਨ ਨਾਸ ਕਰਾਇਓ
And he raped, pillaged, looted Delhi, burnt Delhi to ashes and destroyed everything that stood in his way from Afghanistan to Delhi.
ਰੁਹੇਲੇ ਨਜੀਬੇ ਅਹਿਮਦ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਸਦਵਾਇਓ
And then Najib Khan called Ahmad Shah. So Nadir Shah, who was the Persian emperor, Nadir Shah Abdali, essentially the demise of his emperor, took the rule for himself, and because he was a powerful tribal leader within Afghanistan, he was able to break Afghanistan off from the rest of the Persian Empire, which was around the Iran region. So whereas the Persian Empire consumed itself in his own conflict, Abdali, who had been able to build for himself fame within the Persian army, took Afghanistan for himself and then used Afghanistan as a base to launch many attacks into Hindustan. He destroyed the might of the Marathas. At Panipat, there have been many famous battles that were fought in India between the Marathas and the Abdali's armies. And then he would return to Afghanistan after successful war campaigns in Delhi. And such was the environment of the time that Punjab became a place of rebellion. Punjab became a place of where all the existing power structures had been destroyed, and the people of Punjab began to become autonomous sovereigns in their own rights. What would happen in those days is where there would be 5 or 10 Singhs, the Singhs would say to each other, you take your horse in that direction, you take your horse in that direction, and wherever you get to, that can be your rule, and we'll get back together, and then we'll discuss who owns what villages. And then what the Singhs would do, kite jaake they would leave their kashera there, kite jaake they would leave their talwar there, kite jaake they would leave a parna there. Where wherever they left a nishani, they would say, you know what, I left my, whatever item I left there, that pind is mine. And essentially this is the way that the Singhs used their own might to recognize the power vacuum in Punjab and start to divide it up amongst themselves and take on the responsibility of protecting the peasants at the time who were undergoing this savage attack constantly from the Afghan region. In this way, the emperor gave what is quite an unflattering story of events. When we look at everything that the Singhs did, the Shahidi of Baba Dev Singh Ji, Baba Mani Singh Ji, Baba Banda Singh Bahadur, Nawab Kapoor Singh, Sultan Al-Qaum Jassa Singh Ahluwalia, that actually how the Sikhs came to be rulers is quite a different account. And the Mughal emperor was unwilling to give any such details to the British because he bared within himself enmity towards the Sikhs. Toda chhad ditta. These Singhs are nothing, they're nobodies. There was no one there to rule. These lot were on horseback and they just made this game. There's no legal arrangements, no king gave them any right. They just made this rule for themselves as if by magic. He essentially spoke of the Singhs as mere peasants who became rebellious and took rule for themselves. Neither did he tell the English that there was the Khalsa Panth created by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who gave them the blessings that when Maharaj said, "In Garib Sikhan ko de Patshahi," that I will turn these poor peasants into mighty two emperors. The Mughal emperor, of course, said nothing of this great history of the Khalsa Panth. And neither did he tell Sir David Octherlony that the Puran Guru Avatar in Kal Yug Sat Guru Nanak Dev Ji took birth, and their 10th Avatar Guru Gobind Singh Ji came here and performed many amazing deeds via which his following grew and the Khalsa Panth grew. He did not tell Octherlony any of these matters.
Guruan sahan jim chagdo raha.
And neither did he tell Octherlony that actually the Gurus and the Mughals fought with each other many times. The Guru Nanak Dev Ji spoke out against the rule of Babur and was imprisoned in the jail of Babur, who was the first Mughal emperor. The Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji fought 4 battles with the Mughals. The Guru Gobind Singh Ji was attacked by the Mughals and defended themselves as the earlier Gurus had. Of course, the Mughal emperor gave nothing of this side of the story.
Dohara Sri Guru Nanak jim payo aage vadhyo pratap.
Because of course how the Sikhs had come to rule was because Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Nanak Guru Gobind Singh Ji Puran Guru Avtar. What we reflected on that perfect image of the 10th Guru and the Saviour of Kaljug came into this earth, gave teaching to the people of this earth, and transformed those who took to the teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and then Guru Gobind Singh Ji transformed these people more, giving them the form of a saint as well as a soldier.
Jim Babar par kripa pai kahyo na man rakh paap.
And bearing this enmity, this bab within his mind, the Mughal emperor did not even think to tell the British that actually when my ancestor Babur, who was the first Mughal emperor, came to Hindustan, he sought the blessings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji with Raj, and it is Guru Nanak Dev Ji who said to him that there will be a period of time where your ancestors will rule for. Now the very origins of the Mughal Raj are tied into the stories of their meetings with Guru Nanak Dev Ji in the Janam Sakhis and Nanak Prakash by Kavi Santokh Singh Ji. But of course we disregard our own history because we allow ourselves to listen to those pseudo scholars who have nothing else to do than argue, losing the treasures that we have within our own history. If we don't listen to our own history, we don't read our own history, we will never know who we are, let alone be close to becoming it. Because all we will have is a veneer surface where we can say our ancestors were warriors without knowing nothing about them, their warrior ways or their warrior traditions. That comes only from history. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us right from the beginning of the 1800s, when the British came into India, you already had the emperor, you already had the Mughal, you already had these false accounts being sent all around the world to tell them that these Sikhs are nothing.
And
of course he was going to say nothing about the ways in which the Mughal emperors had oppressed the Hindus and those people who lived within India. Nothing of the sins that his ancestors had committed against the Sikhs, such that they had a need to take up the rebellion and the sword against them. He said nothing of this great history of how the Sikhs and the Gurus had in fact been in conflict with the Mughals throughout centuries. Or the great sacrifices that had been made by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, who sat on the Tatti Tavi, of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, who gave the Shahidi in Delhi for the saviour of the Hindus. That these were pertinent matters that went to the core of the relationship between the Sikhs and the Mughals at Delhi that led to them eventually rebelling against the Mughals and creating Raj for themselves. But the Mughal emperor spoke nothing of such matters. Tan Tan Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Maharaj, who gave their head at Delhi but did not give up on their values, did not give up on their principles, did not give up on their ethics, and showed the world that the Sikhs are those who look upon Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews, who look upon everyone as alike and are willing to give their life to save and protect any of those of any faith, because we believe in the freedom of worship of religion. And of course, from this point onwards, the Sikhs wanted revenge. They killed Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. The Sikhs were raised as a warrior race from Guru Gobind Singh Ji, from Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. They were armed, they were soldiers, they knew how to fight, and many of them were intent on this enmity that the Mughals have brought upon us, that we will have our response to this when our day comes too.
ਜਿਮ ਗੁਰ ਹੁਕਮ ਹੋਏ ਪੰਥ ਰਚਾਇਓ
that Guru Gobind Singh Ji had said to Akal Purkh at their coming into this earth, Thad payo main jor kar bachan kahan sir nyaye, Panth chalaya tab jagt mein jab tum karo sahaye. That when Akal Purkh said to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, I am sending you into this earth for the purpose of creating this Panth, that Guru Gobind Singh Ji said to Akal Purkh, I bow down before you humbly, that this Panth grows and spreads, and those who take to its path are protected and forever under the gaze of your blessings. That the Panth was always going to flourish as a result of this, but of course the Mughals said nothing of such matters.
ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਸੁਤ ਤੋਹ ਨਿਵਾਜਾ ਪੰਥ ਪ੍ਰਚੁਰ ਕਰਬੇ ਕਉ ਸਾਜਾ.
Here Baba Santa Singh Ji, who was one of the first in the modern day to perform Katha of the Panth Parkash in a manner that was recorded. And Baba Santa Singh said then a time will come when this history of the Budha Dal, of the Khalsa Panth, of the Sikhs, because while those holocausts were ongoing, if you were a Sikh, you lived within the Dal Khalsa. You had no other means of surviving unless you were within that caravan of 15,000-20,000 horsemen who would protect you. And we read of the Budha Dal's history during the Kallukare, where the caravan would form as a protective barrier around the Sikhs, with the women and the children in the middle as they sought refuge from the many onslaughts that were placed upon them. All these episodes of history will come within Panth Parkash.
ਪੰਥ ਮਦਤ ਕੋ ਚੰਡ ਜਗਾਈ.
And this divine feminine energy that Guru Nanak Dev Ji speaks of, Eka Mai Jog Divyai Tin Chele Parvan, that Shakti of Akal Purkh, which was also called Chand, how Guru Gobind Singh Ji invoked this energy and spirit within the Khalsa.
ਚੰਡ ਭੇਟ ਦਏ ਭੇਟ ਲਗਾਈ.
And in battle, Chand, by the sword, Guru Gobind Singh Ji sacrificed their own sons for the sake of Dharam.
ਦੇਹ ਆਪਨ ਵੀ ਚੰਡ ਚੜਾਈ.
And Guru Gobind Singh Ji themselves, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was killed, as many of you may know, when assassins were sent to try and kill Guru Gobind Singh Ji when they were residing within Hajur Sahib. And eventually it was the flesh that Maharaj's body obtained from the wind of the Pathan assassins that opened at the time when Guru Gobind Singh Ji was undertaking archery of a very powerful bow. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji themselves left this world in the manner of a warrior in the way in which he had trained his sons in the Khalsa to be.
ਵਾਹ ਤੁਰਕਨ ਸਿਰ ਭਈ ਬੁਰਾਈ.
And of course all of the badness that the Mughals had committed upon the Sikhs, this found no place in the mention of the Mughal emperor's account.
ਪੰਥ ਖਾਤਰ ਗੁਰ ਇਤੀ ਕਮਾਈ.
And how much kamai had the Gurus done? How much qurbani, how many shahidiyan had the Gurus themselves given for this Panth to spread and flourish? Bhai Rattan Singh Ji is reminding us that for us to be here today, how much have the Gurus given us? If truth be told, most of us do not even know what our parents have given us, least of all the struggles that our grandparents went through, the times that they have seen, and we do not even have an appreciation for that and what we should do in our lives that would be fitting and accordingly, let alone what our ancestors did hundreds of years ago so that we could wear a kara on our hand. They gave their lives for it. But the Mughals, of course, said nothing of this time, of the spirit of the Sikhs that had been built during that time.
So dusht na nahe sunai.
That dusht, the one who had held enmity with the Sikhs, he did not think to tell anything that might reflect well on who these things were.
Dohara apapiye aparadh bena sheer khor gurbal.
And what about all those innocent children, the Sahibzade of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, those babies within Mir Manu's jail who were still drinking the mother's milk? What about all these sins that the Mughals had committed upon the Sikhs to kill their own infant children? Did the Mughal think nothing of telling the British why the Sikhs saw it fit to take upon a rebellion against the emperor?
Bedoshe phad gal kate kahyo na una hawal.
Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says such great atrocities were committed upon the Sikhs, where their babies would be taken from them and have their throats slit, like the Sahibzade were done shaheed. Sadh Sangat Ji, I want to make an appeal to everyone in the Darbar Sahib today. Never ever eat halal meat, ever. If you go to a place and you see that there's halal meat sitting there, shame on you for ever eating that. Our Sahibzade were not just bricked alive, they were killed and slaughtered in that halal manner. That for the taste of your tongue you think nothing of going to such places and eating. What honor does this bring upon us as the ancestor of these brave shaheeds? If you're to come today and listen to Katha, change your life, change who you are, take ethics upon yourself and live in a principled way.
ਚੌਪਈ ਫਿਰ 72 ਸ਼ਾਹੇ ਗੁਰ ਲਇਓ ਰਿਝਾਈ.
And then after all these battles that took place, Bahadur Shah, who was the son of Aurangzeb and more liberally minded, he essentially managed to take to the Sharan of Guru Gobind Singh Ji and build some peace with the Sikhs. Anji.
ਪਤ ਸਾਹੇ ਕੀਆਓ ਸਭ ਕਲਾ ਦਿਖਾਈ.
That Bahadur Shah recognized Guru Gobind Singh Ji as the supreme Satguru on this planet and sought the blessings from Guru Gobind Singh Ji to rule, just as his ancestor Babur had sought from Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
ਭੇਜ ਬੰਦੇ ਕੋ ਫਿਰ ਖੋਹੇ ਲਈ.
But Bahadur Shah had promised Guru Gobind Singh Ji that he would avenge the death of the Sahibzades by Wazir Khan, because the killing of the Sahibzade of Wazir Khan was illegal as per the laws of Islam. No religion advocates the killing of young innocent beings. Instead, we have allowed religion to be a thing that we allow men who wish to exploit us and exert power over us to spread hatred. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who was well versed in the Islamic verses in the Quran and the writings of the great Persian scholars, had pressed upon Bahadur Shah that what Wazir Khan has done is illegal against Islam, and as the emperor who has taken upon the task of ensuring that Islam is upheld, you are duty bound by your religion as a Muslim to punish Wazir Khan. But when Bahadur Shah did not do this, Guru Gobind Singh Ji instead sent the Khalsa Panth with Banda Singh Bahadur to punish Wazir Khan and take Sarhand. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us that many of us have this glorified fancy version of Sikhi. That we must shed that, because in today's day and age what we find is we have many divisions. Many divisions existed from the start, but what we did have in those days was this sense of constantly being under attack that meant we had to unite. And one of the first divisions came from between the Tat Khalsa and the Banda Khalsa, and this history will come in Panth Parkash. But Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says that all these important events, when Banda Singh Bahadur came into Punjab, sacked Sarhand, established Khalsa Raj within Punjab, that none of these were narrated by the Mughal emperor.
दोहरा कही न गल वह गुरन की आओ कही न गल वह पंथ.
Neither did the Mughal emperor speak of the Khalsa Panth, and neither did he speak of the gurus of the Sikhs.
घुलते बीते बारस बाहो पातशाह आओ गुर संत.
For centuries, the gurus, the Sanths, the Bhagats, the Khalsas had been in conflict with the Mughals, but yet all this was kept out of the account, the false account given to Sir David Octherlony.
सोरठा बंद बंद सिखन कटाए खोपरी सिरों उतार कर.
Bhai Mani Singh Ji, who was cut limb by limb, and Gurbani could still be heard coming from Bhai Mani Singh Ji as their body lay in bits. Such sacrifices made by Sikhs. Bhai Taru Singh Ji, who would serve the Sikhs langar as they stayed within the jungles and were being hunted down, and was taken and imprisoned. And Bhai Taru Singh Ji, he said, "You cannot cut my hair. You cannot cut my hair, but you can take my scalp." And they were unable to cut his hair, and so they took his scalp. And even then he goes, "But you cannot take my life, because that is in the Guru's hands." So such great shaheeds who lived and through their life, through their kamai, through their jivan, displayed the miraculous ways of the Khalsa and the Sikhs of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. None of these great stories were told to the British.
पिंड पिंड सूली कटाए हार गए जिम मुगल बल.
And once there was a time when the Mughals would take throughout villages of Punjab the heads of Sikhs. They would gather the heads of Sikhs in wagons, giving a reward to each person who brought the head of a Sikh. And then these heads, sometimes up to 500 a day, would be taken to Lahore. And in Lahore, the heads of those Sikhs would be cast on spikes, where they would be put out for everyone to be afraid to ever become a Sikh.
Chaupai aur nadar gal sabhi na kahi.
And neither of Nadir Shah's invasions to Punjab, remember he said that Nadir Shah simply came to Punjab, left a power vacuum that the Singhs filled. Neither did he give a complete account of what happened during Nadir Shah's invasions, because remember, we know in our history that when Nadir Shah would return to Afghanistan with the prisoners from Delhi, having taken thousands of women as prisoners to be sold in the marketplaces of Kabul, that the Singhs would conduct daring midnight raids upon them and rescue them and bring them back. But all of this was missing from the account given by the Mughals.
Delhi lutti jinhe qatal karahi.
And the many times that the Sikhs had already taken Delhi, the times when the Singhs had said, Jaisi Delhi lutti, taisi billi kutti, that we have taken Delhi, the Singhs decided we don't want to stay in Delhi, we've got Hola Mahalla to go to and celebrate at Anandpur Sahib, let's leave Delhi to these people, and every time there's a Jod Mela, we're going to come, we're going to take money from you, we're going to do langar with that, and all of the Gurdwara in Delhi, you as the emperor are going to be responsible for building. So essentially the Singhs taxed the government. They said, listen, we're in charge now, we've got 20,000 men on horseback, we've got another 80,000 in Punjab, we don't want to keep knocking at your door, because every time we knock on your door, it's going to get worse for you, so just give us what we want the first time we ask. And in this way, the Singhs did Fateh of Delhi 19 times.
Uska bhi Singh lutte rahe.
Delhi nu ta lutte rahe Singh. Delhi ta Singha ne kiha bhi ta Delhi Padshahi Babar ne Guru Nanak to lai bhi ta hai hi apniyan. These are within the hands of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Bahadur Shah obtained his rule from Guru Gobind Singh Ji. It is our Gurus who bless these lot with Raj. It's our Guru's Raj. We'll take from it what we want when we need.
Kabul Kandhar de rahe lut khahe.
But they would not steal from the poor. When Abdali would steal from those in Delhi, rape, loot and plunder it, on his way back to Kabul and Kandhar, the Sikhs would steal from him everything that he had just stolen from Delhi.
Fir Ahmad Shah Lahore mal baheo.
And then a time came where Ahmad Shah from Kandhar came and took over at Delhi, at Lahore, and established himself the emperor at Lahore.
Delhi, Agra, Sabh mal layo.
And Delhi and Agra and all these other territories had come under his rule.
So Singhan na dayo nikar.
And a time came when he himself, and we find this in the writings of Qazi Nur Muhammad. Qazi Nur Muhammad writes of the Sikhs. He uses very offensive language against the Sikhs. He says these people are dogs. And having that hatred for the Sikhs that he calls them dogs, he can still not help himself but praise the Sikhs over and over again for being such great warriors. And all of this history that ensued during that time period, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says no one has even told this history yet. These people who were the emperors of 22 regions, these people who were mighty emperors of these great continents, the Persian Empire, the Mughal Empire, this meant nothing to the Singhs. When they wanted to, if they felt it was just to do so, they robbed and looted and attacked these people to defend those that they felt needed defended. They were never afraid of anyone's power or might but that of Akal Purkhs.
Dohara jim us putra tamur ko langayo murtan karahe.
And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji here tells a funny story. So Tamur Shah, who was the son of Abdali, was told by Abdali, who Abdali had got fed up of dealing with the Sikhs. He'd blown up Harmandir Sahib, he'd put out genocides, he'd put a price on their head, because he was so fed up of being robbed every time he went back to Afghanistan. He says to his son, okay, we've got Lahore, you take Lahore now. And Sardar Charat Singh, who was the grandfather of Mahadara Ranjit Singh. I think it was at Gujranwala where Timur Shah had essentially put siege to this territory that had been ruled by Chart Singh. Chart Singh being the grandfather again of Mahadara Ranjit Singh. And when Chart Singh wrote a letter to the Budha Dal that Timur Shah Abdali has come and I need the Khalsa's help. So the Singhs, because Chart Singh had served within the genocides of the Sikhs. In the Kallukara, it is said that Chart Singh rode 5 horses to exhaustion. Ek koda thak janda si duja. The Singhs used to have 4 or 5 horses tied together upon which they would ride because they carried so many weapons and they were riding 24/7 that they had to keep swapping horses. And in this way, when Chart Singh called for help, the Budha Dal dispatched its army, which numbered around 15,000. At this point, Timur Shah, who had within his service 400 Sikhs, because in Panth Parkash we find the history of all Sikhs, of Peshawar, of Gujranwala, of Lahore, of Agra, of Delhi, of Maratha, Sikhs from all over the world, not just Punjab. Because when these Sikhs put aside their caste, whether they're Jat or Tarkhan or Nai, and all these histories that will come up of how these castes came together, when they put that aside, they become the Khalsa. And when that Khalsa comes together, they become the form of Akal Purkh. So when Timur Shah asked his Sikh servants, the Budha Dal's coming, what should I do now? His Sikh servant said to him, run. Run right now, grab whatever you can and get out of here while you can. And Timur Shah, as the Singhs came, they laid onslaught to his armies. He had to hide amongst the corpses. Imagine this, the son of the emperor. He had to hide amongst the corpses in order to stay alive. When we go past Hari Ke Patan, many of you may know in Punjab, that you might find great big piles of sand that look like mountains. They're not sand mountains. That's the manure of the Singhs' horses when they lived on those rivers that would be piled so high that over time, as sand came and embellished itself over it, they look now like great hills and mountains. That manure is still there today to see, because the Singhs lived across that riverbank so they could go quickly into the jungles and follow that river wherever they needed to get to from one territory to another.
Gayo talak nikar ka ham ulad ave itna hai.
And talak, the word talak, which translates roughly as divorce, he gave a talak between him and the Singhs. He said, we are finished. My descendants will have nothing to do with your descendants. It's over. We're never coming back here. And of course, when we know from the history of Mahadara Ranjit Singh's time, it wasn't over. Because even when Mahadara Ranjit Singh would take over the territories from Kabul Kandahar, he would raise slogans against the descendants, saying, descendants of Abdali, the descendants of Chart Singh has now come. Will you battle him in duel? And so this power struggle that the Sikhs were immersed in, they were a force unto their own right, living by the traditions that the Guru had given them, and this is what allowed them to rule. And then his grandsons, of course, came, as we said, at the time of Mahadara Ranjit Singh Ji. And even then, Mahadara Ranjit Singh Ji scared away and made them run away in order to save their lives. Right from the beginning of its time, this Panth has been grappling, fighting, scrapping for its very survival, and it knows nothing else but to fight. And this evil empire thought nothing but to describe them as mere peasants who were rebellious. One who has enmity within him can never be appeased in the way in which a snake has poison within it, can never be removed of its poison. Even if you give that snake milk, even if you give that emperor praise and wealth and what he wants and make him happy, like the snake, like the emperor, like an enemy, because we find many military and political strategy within the writings of Bhai Rattan Singh Ji, and he says even if you give someone milk, they might still bite you in the way that the snake, who is poisonous, Even if you give it milk, it could still sting you, bite you, kill you, and poison you. There was no truth in any of the account given by the Mughal emperor. He thought it wise that he tell truths about the Singhs so that they would never gain any good reputation amongst the people of the world. And Octherlony wrote everything down that the Mughal emperor was telling him about the Sikhs. And at that time, Sir Octherlony did not think to distinguish whether the king was lying or telling the truth. But one good thing about the British is they were obsessed with academia, with writing, with what's he said, what's he said, what's he said. Let's write it all down and then we'll form an opinion. They had these methodologies embellished within them, but the original account that they'd obtained from the Mughal emperor was like the representative of one king asking another king, and it ran the risk of essentially becoming an official world history of the Sikhs. The Mughals have forever been at war with all other religions of Hindustan. Because religion, as we said, people use religion as a means of creating conflict, of obtaining power and exploiting others. And this was the essence of by which the Mughals saw the Sikhs as such people who they had disdain for. That if by speaking the truth a Sikh or an enemy can be killed, then why would the Mughal hold back on telling lies about the Sikhs? If you cover your arm in oil and place it into a basket of sesame seeds, Bhai Rattan Singh says the fanatical preachers of the time were telling the Muslims that as many seeds will stick on your arm, if you can kill that many infidels, your place in heaven will be assured. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, as I have heard this history, so I have told it. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji now gives us a clue to the history that he is going to tell. The history of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the history of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the history of the Khalsa Panth, the history of the Kallukare, Bhai Mehtab Singh, Bhai Mani Singh, Baba Deep Singh, Bhai Taru Singh. All of these accounts of history, the original source is Panth Parkash. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji has told us that as I have heard the history, as I have heard about how the Europeans came here, as I have heard about how the British went to the Emperor of Mughal and what he told them, as I heard the alternative account from the elder Sikhs, I am telling you, Suno Sant Man Laika Aga Kahu Badai. O my Sants, O my Gurmukhs, O my friends, O my fellow Sikhs, as I now begin to narrate this account of history further, I endear you to listen with love. So here we finish today's Katha on Panth Parkash. For all the Sangat who's come in the Darbar Sahib, we thank you for your blessings. The Katha will be posted on Khalsa Panth UK page continuously from wherever it will be formed in the UK. We ask that you give your blessings, your Dasik Guru Sahib's Charan, that we continue in the Seva of Maharaj, and undertake that this year, because the gyms will tell you to join the gyms, the shops will tell you to come to the sales, the food will tell you to consume this year. Apana Kama is to come to your Gurdwara this year, to tell you this, to listen to Katha this year. This is a thing that your life will lead you to a place of peace, a place of understanding yourself, your ancestors, your Guru Sikhi. So Katha takes place at this Gurdwara on the first Thursday of every month and the last Thursday of every month. You have an opportunity to come and join and be part of that Katha, and you also have an opportunity to follow this Katha wherever it is done, as it will be posted on the Khalsa Panth UK YouTube page. So Sad Sangat Ji, we seek your blessings. For any mistakes, we seek your forgiveness. And in this Sad Sangat coming together, we are able to obtain our Guru's happiness, and may that be what we leave here with today. Taki apna lok sukhiya par lok sohela hove, so that this life and our next life is fruitful. So benti aiya to carry on with the Katha for a little bit. The Katha, the first chapter has come to a close here. And instead of beginning the second chapter, we can recap on some of the value of what we have listened to. So, Guru Sahib Ji tells us in Gurbani, Babaniya Kahaniya Put Suput Kareen. The Upadesh of Guru Granth Sahib Ji is that if you want to be sons of your fathers, you must hear, listen and tell the story of your forefathers. Now, the fathers that Guru Granth Sahib Ji is speaking about, someone said to me once, he goes, I went to the house of my friend and he said to me with great pride that my dad was the Sarpanch, my granddad was a Lambardar, that they had so much pride about their family. And he said to him that on their wall he had a picture of Baba Deep Singh Ji, and he said, oh, who's that? And he goes, that's Baba Ji. He goes, okay, Baba Ji. What Baba Ji? It's Baba Ji. He did not know the name of Baba Deep Singh Ji, right? This isn't about making anyone feel bad or guilty. It's about, we have such rich, valuable sources of inspiration. Going back to what Bhai Rattan Singh Ji said, what did Bhai Rattan Singh promise us? That if we listen to this Katha with love, they said you become fearless. Listening to the Katha of Baba Deep Singh Ji, listening to the Katha of Bhai Mani Singh, listening to the Katha of Bhai Taru Singh, listening to the Katha of Bota Singh, Garja Singh, who when they heard that the Singhs were finished, said, we ain't finished. There's two of us still alive, and for as long as we're alive, it's our rule, you're paying tax on this road now. Listening to these stories of the Singhs is what will give us the courage to overcome the adversity that we experience in our life on a day-to-day basis. Listening to the stories of these Singhs, listening to the Kamai of these things will tell us, what am I doing or not doing that they were doing or not doing? What kind of Jivan did they have? And I was reflecting upon this myself today, that I get so lazy sometimes, even getting up and going into the shower in the mornings, that I think of the Jivan of those Gursikhs who would have to get up in the morning, go and get Ishnan Vaste Pani, go and get the water from the well or the river that they would have a bath with, carry that water back, warm up that water and give that water to other Gursikhs. Because Bhai Tara Singh Maan, who was one of the greatest Sikh warriors whose history we also find in Panth Parkash, was that warrior who would get up every day and go and get water for all the other Singhs in the morning and then have his Ishnan. Baba Lerna Singh Ji, a Mahapurush who was a Sevadar at Rakaba for a long time, they carried on doing this, having passed away only in the 1990s. So there are many Singhs, even in the modern day, who lived by this sense of our Kamai, our Jivan, our power comes from our Seva. Kamai, sometimes we speak of in a worldly sense. When people come here, we Kamai kinni hogi, pound kinne kamale. Oh Kamai nahi, oh naal kedi janiya Kamai. That's not the Kamai, that's not the wealth, that's not the earnings that are going to go with you when you leave here. Because if there's one thing that is certain, you are going to leave here, and so has everyone else who has ever come here. The question is, what do you take with you? The question is, what do you carry with you in your pocket? What is your inspiration? What is your courage? What is your compass? What are your morals? Where do you get your courage from? Are you a scaredy cat or are you a fearless person? Are you someone who runs away from trouble and adversity, or are you someone who thinks, with the help of my Guru, I can get through this? This is what Ityas di Katha brings. This is what the history of the Khalsa Panth brings. And above all else, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us that in the opening verses, that Sri Gur Panth Parkash, the Khalsa Panth was given the Padavi of Guru by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And these days that we have just celebrated at Chamkaur di Gadi, Maharaj Guru Gobind Singh said to the Khalsa, you are my Guru. In the way that Guru Gobind Singh Ji said to the Khalsa at the Vaisakhi of 1699, you are my Guru. In the prasang of the original Vaisakhi that will come in Panth Parkash, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says that Guru Gobind Singh Ji embracing the Khalsa with so much love, it was like the way in which Guru Nanak Dev Ji embraced Bhai Lerna as the Guru when they became Ape Guru Chela. So this sense of where the master, the guru, the teacher becomes the disciple, becomes the student, and takes to the feet at the Khalsa. Why? Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. The Khalsa belongs to Vaheguru. The Khalsa belongs to Vaheguru. A Guru Gobind Singh Ji first battle that Maharaj won, that they write about in Bachitra Natak, where they were attacked without any reason or just cause. Guru Gobind Singh Ji was told afterward the battle, congratulations, you won the battle. Guru Gobind Singh Ji says, I did not win, Akal Purkh won. I did not win, Akal Purkh won. This isn't my army. This isn't my Khalsa. This is Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. This is Vaheguru's Khalsa, and the victory is Vaheguru's as well. So Bhai Rattan Singh Ji, they act as a bridge to that. How distant and disconnected do we feel from that Khalsa? In our day-to-day lives, probably very. Whether that is losing Gursikhi Sarup, whether that is losing our daily Nitrem and our Ret Maryada, whether that is losing maybe the love that we once had for our Guru and Gursikhi, or whether that is we have never yet in this life had the opportunity to experience that. You have to ask yourself though, who are you? Because Baba Santa Singh Ji, as they prepared this steek, they said, this isn't just the history of the Budha Dal. This isn't just the history of the Khalsa Panth. This is the history of your grandfathers, great-great-great-great-grandfathers. This is the history of your great-great-great-great-grandmothers. The history of these shaheeds written about in Panth Parkash runs through your bloods. It's in your DNA. But yet we allow ourselves to consume everything else in life, nothing that will connect us to that. That is Gur Ityas, that is Gurbani. So Sad Sangat Ji, in the time that we have, now Bhai Sahib is here. As Bhai Sahib Ji gets ready, and we ask that you sit in this way lovingly to listen to Kirtan as well. Let us for the last minute come, close our eyes together and do Simran. And with the Simran Sangat Ji, we seek your blessings and the continuation of this Katha. Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru. So as is the Marada with Ityas, I ask Bhai Sahib to read the last two verses, and from there we will all say Fateh together and finish the Katha for today. Hanji.
Rattan Singh na jim suni sota tari likhaye suno sant man laye ka aga kahun badaye.
Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Gaj ke jakare gajave nialo jave, Shida Singha nu paave. Sat Shri Akal. Akal, Dekh Tekh Fateh. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa.